Hello and welcome to West Country Wanderings. Welcome to part 3 of the Dramway, the third and final episode of the Dramway here in South Gloucestershire. I'm back here in the village of Warmley, just to the west of the city of Bristol, about 4 or 5 miles away from the city centre. That seat up there is where I finished the video last time on episode 2. I'm here on Siston Common. I have one of my viewers to thank to pronounce the correct pronunciation. I'm sorry, last time I pronounced it Siston Common, but it's actually Siston Common. That bridge I showed you last time, we'll have a quick look, a recap of that, just back down there. There's going to be 2 parts to this video today. The first part, I'm going to walk to a place called Brandy Bottom, which is directly ahead of us, following the Dramway, where there was once a colliery. And I'm going to return to my car. I'm going to drive on a little bit further to the village of Coalpit, Heath, to complete our adventures here on the Dramway in South Gloucestershire on West Country Wanderings. So I hope you can join me for the adventures today. So this is the bridge that carries Norman Road over the Dramway here in South Gloucestershire, and this bridge was actually built in 1830 and it's in an excellent state of repair. Now I've just checked my loads as we walk to Brandy Bottom, where there's a quarry, and it says that there was a branch off the Dramway serving the needs of a quarry. So we'll see if we can find anything of that. Another thing to look out for is a building. Now this building was known as the Gin House, and it was actually built before the Dramway was completed to serve the needs of the colliery. So we'll see if we can find that as well. So those 2 things we're looking for as we walk along the Dramway towards Brandy Bottom. Actually surprising how large Siston Common is. I can just see a load of hot air balloons, if you can see that. You probably won't pick that up, but there's about 8 of them in there. I'm not sure if it is the Bristol Balloon Festival today or whether they're practicing for the weekend, next weekend. I'll check that up and put that below, because I was hoping to go along to that. But there's lots of things going on around the country at the moment, which I won't dwell on or talk about here. I think you know what I'm referring to. But politics stays off my channel here on West Country Wanderings. Continue along here, and so if we can see this, what was known as the Gin House. Now I can't see any evidence of this branch line at the moment. The route of the Dramway at this point is become a lot less clear, so I'm just walking on grass at the moment, so you can't really tell, and it's going around a curve, so our route seems to be a bit lost. But the Dramway did go over the road that edges Siston Common here, but the bridge has now, well, I'm not sure if it's been demolished, but it's certainly been infilled, so I can see if we can make out where that is. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to join see, there's another track here, so this way, but I need to make our way, so I'm not sure if it went up this way or not, but there's a hill. I wonder if that's it there. I'm not sure. I think I will walk no, let's go up this way to see if we can work it out where it was. But there's those balloons again. There's a big red one. Where is it? Just over there. But yeah, you're probably not going to pick it up on this camera. But here we go. Well, have a look here, see if we can find the bridge where the Dramway went over the main road here. I think this is our Dramway branch, which served the quarry, and I think the quarry is actually in that woodland there. If I follow this track back down there, it should be where the main route of the Dramway is. I'll insert the map now so you can see what I'm talking about. Here on the edge of Siston Common, lovely here on this early summer's morning here on a Sunday. There's no one around at all. And so I think it was there, and I think our bridge, which carried the Dramway over the road, was around that area as well, where the 2 meet up. So let's just first of all, let's see if we can find anything of the quarry. Well, there's certainly evidence of quarrying here, judging by this very large slab of limestone here, just on the edge of this branch of the Dramway. So, and I think our quarry was in here, so it's probably going to go a bit dark and grainy at this point as we step in. Yes, definitely a quarry in here. Yes, so it's all in here. So lots of quarry faces. There's a quarry face over there and a big one over in that direction. And say this was served by that branch just off the main spine of the Dramway, which we'll now go and find and return to now. So I think that's our branch that led off the main Dramway at this point, which heads up towards the quarry. Not sure the year it was constructed though, if I can find that out, my unusual sort of thing I do. So we've now come up to the road, as I say, where there was a bridge here, and I'm not sure, it's hard to work out whether it was an under or over bridge at this point. So our Dramway is coming in a diagonal line from that direction, heading over in this direction here. And well, we know that from this. So this is our road here, Dramway path on the sign there, and the Dramway then goes down here. Now there's lots in this area. We can see our sets. Now we haven't seen any limestone sets for a while, but they're certainly clear here at this point. I'll just show you now. So that's where the oak pins would have been put into our limestone set, holding the rails in place. And just if you pan across, well, there you can see the dip where the road is, and our bridge must have gone over the road at exactly this point here on the Dramway. And that's looking back in the opposite direction. And you can see a complete set of limestone sets here running in parallel along the route of the Dramway here in South Gloucestershire. Now at this point here, our Tramway's on a bit of embankment. That's looking back down towards the direction of the road and the former bridge. And that's looking ahead of us in the direction of Shortwood and Brandy Bottom. Well, eventually heading up to Mangotsfield, where the other Dramway split off, which of course later was turned into the Midland Railway, heading into Bristol underneath Staple Hill via tunnel. And this bit here looks like it's allotments basically, or a community garden. I've just come through a gate down there, but there's no remains of our Dramway, even though this is the route of it. It looks like there was a former building there. There was like a concrete plinth of a building that's now been demolished. So now met what looks like a road, well it's not actually. This is the route of the former Midland Railway, heading towards Bath from Mangotsfield, which is now of course the Bristol and Bath cycle path. So originally would have been railway tracks with ballast. And of course the Dramway existed prior to the Midland Railway, the bits where they used it. So the Dramway is difficult to work out where it goes at this point, but we're going to follow along the former Midland Railway for just a short while. And I think there should be a footbridge. We'll have a look for that. So our Tramway's become a little bit lost at this point. You're looking back at the railway path, which heads down towards the city of Bristol, and that bridge with gentlemen's running across it now carries the cycle path over the A417 Bristol Ring Road. But that's not our way. Our Dramway heads this way still, on the edge of Siston Common, but it's not clear exactly where. We did have some nice markers saying Dramway, Dramway, but now they seem to have disappeared completely. Let's go back and have a look at our map. So just to recap at this point, if you're just joining the Dramway for the first time, I do recommend watching parts 1 and 2 first though, because it will make more sense. This section is the Avon and Gloucestershire Railway Company. So this is the section from Mangotsfield south down to the River Avon at Londonderry Wharf, where it connected up with the River Avon and then going into boats into both Bristol and Bath. There was another railway, the Bristol and Gloucestershire Railway, which ran from Mangotsfield into the city of Bristol via Staple Hill, which later became, of course, the Midland Railway, running into the heart of Bristol from Mangotsfield. So two completely separate companies, as I say, the one we're on now, Avon and Gloucestershire. Nothing to do with Avon as in the former county of Avon, but it is obviously through part of the land that former county once existed. Now, of course, we're here in South Gloucestershire. So we're walking in the direction of Mangotsfield, although we're heading up to a place called Brandy Bottom, where hopefully there should be some remains of the colliery. There's a lot of ridges here. There's also lots of vegetation too, so I'll see you in a bit. We have a marker post there. Dramway splits off in two directions on a very busy intersection on the Bristol bypass ring road, should I say. Yeah, lots of traffic whizzing around here. So that section there, so the tramway is coming in two directions. We're just slightly south of Mangotsfield Station, former junction on the Midland Railway. Might have a time to have a look at that later. I have covered it before in a previous video. But the route that we want to go to, Brandy Bottom, isn't there, that would take us on into Bristol, Dramway that way, on the aforementioned Bristol Gloucestershire section of the Dramway. But we're following the Avon Gloucestershire section, which goes along this way. Now it's probably looking quite dark, but just down here looks something really interesting, so follow me. So this here on the Avon Gloucestershire tramway, is known as the Ghost Bridge, because as you can see, it now currently goes from nothing to nothing. So there's nothing on either side of it. Obviously it was a road, and obviously when they built the ring road here, the roads in this area just to the north and west of the city of Bristol got changed. How do I know it's called the Ghost Bridge? Well, there's a plaque just down here. It is hard to make out a lot of the writing now, but yeah, it's just there. And I do apologise for the road noise, because the tramway here runs parallel to the ring road, but it's still a wonderful sight, and still, like the other one we saw at Siston Common, in excellent condition. It's wonderful to see that, and I'm so pleased that when they built the A4174 Bristol Ring Road, they didn't come into this space of the Dramway, though we do have a bit of noise to put up with, even though it's early on a Sunday morning here with a lot of traffic. That's tremendous to see, and glad it's completely intact, as in the route of the Dramway here at this point in South Gloucestershire. Well, again, apologies for the traffic noise. I'm very, very close to that road. But I may not apologise for showing you this, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't expect to find the tunnel. It's not in my notes. I wasn't expecting to see this, so I didn't realise there was a tunnel right here on the Dramway. The purposes of which I don't really know, because again, it's a bit of a ghost one. It was truncated. There was something over there, which obviously went when the ring road was built. I think that was possibly built in maybe the late 80s, early 90s. I'm not sure. It's about 30 years ago. But it goes, again, from where to now. So it's not actually a hill that you'd normally associate a tunnel with. But again, it's still in excellent condition. There's a plaque by the side of it. It does say that it was listed in 1993. So yeah, that's great. So tunnel here on our Dramway here on West Country Wanderings. Now, the outside of this tunnel portal is very similar to the bridges, the couple of bridges we've seen already here on the Dramway in Part 3, but the inside of the tunnel isn't completely brick-lined, well, not with the same limestone brick facing that we've seen elsewhere on the other two bridges. It's made up, well, it's an odd construction. Some of it's bare rock, Some of it is like small, what do you call like bricks that are like that shaped? I really don't know, I'm not an expert in construction. Let's see if I can get a couple of photographs so I can show you what I mean. Now, though you can't see it from this point, the other side of the road there is the Midland Railway, which heads south from Westerly Junction, going underneath the main Paddington to South Wales line, and it went on like the northern edge of that triangle. So the tip of the triangle is pointing into the city of Bristol, specifically Staple Hill, and the other bit was a little bit north of when I said the two sections of the Dramway split. So this is the northern section here. I think I just say northern section, southern section where it's split to the Dramway. So we're still running alongside the Midland Railway, which is just the other side, or rather was the other side of the road here. But as I say, we can't see it at this point. Anyway, we're going to continue our journey along the Dramway to the former colliery site. I mentioned this in episode 1, but it's at this point, the road in between, that you have two railways running in parallel, in fact. So this is our Dramway, which was a standard gauge railway because it ran on the standard gauge. But the Midland Railway, which came later on the other side of the road here, heading south from Westerly Junction to Mangotsfield Station, Midland Railway, was built as a broad gauge line. So it had a broad gauge line before it was converted to standard gauge line, running parallel to a standard gauge. And I think that's the only point where that's ever happened on the UK's railway system. Okay, so I've now arrived at Shortwood. We have an overbridge here, but it's a newer one, newer construction there. But what is interesting is the cutting here. You can make out that this was part of the original Avon and Gloucestershire tramways bit when it was built in 1830. So it's quite a deep cutting as we approach Shortwood. There is an inscription on the side of the bridge there. It says Shortwood Bridge 2001. Well, it's in Roman numerals there, but the bit further on that way is the facing of the original cutting as built by the Avon Gloucestershire Railway. So our Dramway routes split back there. That's the bit where there's like a cord, if you like, linking back to the Bristol and Gloucestershire tramway, heading via Staple Hill. There's also cycle routes, the Avon Valley cycleway. You can get down to places like Filton and Frenchay, which is where we were the other day looking at the flower show, of course. But we're heading this way in the direction of Pucklechurch. And I think it's about a mile on before we get to our colliery site. So what we're walking to is originally an 18th century coal colliery here in South Gloucestershire, but it was expanded around 1800 by a gentleman called Lord Radnor. Now presumably he owned the land hereabouts and he had a coal shaft sunk on his land. What's interesting about this particular quarry, of course later served when the Dramway opened in 1830, was it was steam powered by a Cornish beam engine. So I'm hoping we will see some remains of all of that as we make our way to the Brandy Bottom Colliery. Off the Dramway here is a large former council tip, rubbish tip. You can make out, well, old bits of roads and that sort of thing. So that's, if you're walking this way, which actually is near the present day Grove Farm, don't be thinking it's off down this way. So that there, I'll put the map in, so that's part of the tip, and I think it's all now abandoned. But it obviously was a huge refuse site here for just off the edge of Bristol, as I say. It looks like there's some tanks and pipes, all kinds of things that went on in this area, and they've got blocks here to stop cars coming down this former trackway, which is probably an access road for the refuse carts themselves, what used to be known as dust carts, to bring the refuse here. Tucked in on this fence post behind a barrier blocking access to the former refuse tip is a sign. It's a bit faded, But yes, indeed it does say Brandy Bottom Colliery to the right. Just had an interesting conversation with the gentleman back there, saying about that bank there. It's not just for refuse. It was originally a clay bund. There was a huge brickworks there called the Shortwood Brickworks, and if I can find a photograph of that, I'll insert that round about now. Our colliery, though, is a little bit further on. He was also saying about the Parkfield Colliery, which was once nearby, just off on the left of the Dramway, and when that ran down, the owners bought the one here, Brandy Bottom, combined the two and put a large access route right through, tunnelling right through to get the coal extracted. Now, just like I've come across when I've been looking at old mines in Cornwall, tin mines, I get the sense there might be some uncapped shafts in this area. There's some fencing over there. But here, right in front of me, we have something really exciting. You're not going to believe this. We have a rail. Well, would you look at that? Just point it there so I'll make it out so you can see it. Right there. There it is. Our rail, which presumably would have been once used here on the Dramway. So excited to see that. I don't know what it's closing off though. So if I pan back here, you see this hump here. Now, is this access to one of the coal pits here at Brandy Bottom? I'm not too sure. But yeah, it's great to see that there. Rail from the Dramway. Apologies for the grainy footage. I'm now in Grovewood, just above Grove Farm, and our colliery site was down there, and part of this is in effect a slag heap, yes, from what they dug out of the ground and put it up. It's not like a huge one like you see around South Wales, and it has become rewilded with the wonderful trees here now, so it's a beautiful and wild place just off the edge of the main Bristol and Bath cycleway. So it's a wonderful place to explore. It looks like people have been building little dens down here as well. I think the place where we do need to be, I think that might be a peregrine I can hear actually, but a place where we need to do to see if there's any ruins of the colliery is down the other side of this, what is probably a coal slag hill. And there are bits that the Dramway crossed over this area where there was like sections as it heads its way, carrying on up there to Coalpit Heath, which will be our final destination and kind of another part to this video later on. But yeah, this is a lovely place to explore. It's nice and relaxing. There's no one up here at all, well away from the cyclist speeding path on the cycle path there. But you can see how dark and indeed black it is in places on the ground. I'll just show you over here so you can see, get the effect that I mean. Just have a look at this. Almost dark black here. There you can see the slag was dug out of the ground and chucked on the top here. And now we have trees growing on the top of it once more. And here, in fact, we can make out small shiny pieces of coal buried inside the slag, just on heaps and heaps over the mound here. Well, that's fantastic. So I'm actually up against a green fence, so I can't walk into what you're seeing at the moment. But that is one of the original buildings here at Brandy Bottom. If my eyes don't deceive me, if you can make out the right of the building there, where there's a pipe, drainage pipe, going into that green bucket. Just above that, I can see a wheel. Was that one of the colliery wheels here at Brandy Bottom Colliery? I suspect very much that it was. Looks like the site is being restored though. Something more impressive on the other side of the cycle path. So we have two really good interpretive boards here. The first map recorded at pit at Brandy Bottom is dated 1837. Of course, we know that activity carried on before then. It's a rare example of the footprint of a 19th century steam-driven coal mine. As well as the buildings here, the scheduled area includes the adjacent waste tips, known as batches, which we were walking on the top of, a pond and two halves of mining wheel beside the Dramway, now the cycle path. We'll have a look at that in a bit. The underground workings are now inaccessible as they're flooded to within a few feet of the surface. Yes, of course, because of the Cornish beam engine which was once here, that was required to pump the water out of the mine. Now the old pit, as opposed to the new pit which is behind me, has a heapstead, so I can show that now. All the buildings to support mining still recognisable: boiler houses, winding engines, Cornish beam pumping engine, and mechanics workshops, not to mention an ornate chimney used for the furnaces and to ventilate the mine itself. You can have a look at that now, just scanning up over the top of that. Now later, a new pit was sunk here and a timber bridge was built between the two heapsteads so that the new shaft could be serviced using the existing facilities at the old pit. And as I say, the new pit's literally opposite, and you can see the entrance to the new pit here. There was no road access to the mine, well there still isn't, hence why I walked from Siston Common, and it's believed that this contributed to the lack of vandalism and alternative uses to ensure that it became what is considered to be the most intact early mine in Great Britain. The mine stopped producing coal in 1905, was kept as a satellite for the much larger Parkfield Colliery situated further north, and to which it was joined to underground. The beam pumping engine continued to operate and the Brandy bottom shafts provided alternative means of escape. Electric fans were installed in 1917 to allow a more efficient circulatory system of ventilation in both mines. Parkfield Colliery itself continued in production until 1936, but Bristol's narrow coal seams, faults and high groundwater levels meant that it struggled to compete with other coalfields in England and South Wales once the main line railways were built. Most remaining Bristol mines also closed that year, 1936. And you can see on this map here on the interpretive board just how extensive the Dramway network here. So this is where we've walked to from Siston Common down the bottom here, and this is the Dramway passing through between the old and new pits. It's an interesting write-up here about how the mine actually functioned, and it said that the miners chalked their names on the mine tub that they had filled as they were paid by weight. They were not paid for the small coal, so they carefully selected what went into the tub with the large lumps. Well, I have to say that this site here at Brandy Bottom Colliery is well worth a look around. They are requesting volunteers. They aren't open this Sunday, but they are open next Sunday, which is the 10th of August. And they are looking for, volunteers to carry on the renewal of this. And I'll do a link to the Avon Heritage Buildings Trust, I think that's what they're called, in the description of today's video. But you can come here via your bike on the Bristol Bath cycle path, or as I say, you could do, I've parked in the warmly Siston Common area, and it's about an hour or so's walk. What I'm going to do now, though, it's not the end of our Dramway exploration here, is I'm going to walk back to my car at Siston Common, probably grab a coffee actually, the railway station there at Warmley, and then drive over to Coalpit Heath to conclude our adventures here on the Dramway in South Gloucestershire, to have a look and see what we can see at the Hill Colliery site. Hope you can join me for that. See you in a bit. Well, welcome back. I'm back here again on the Dramway in South Gloucestershire, just on the edge of the village of Coalpit Heath, appropriately named, just also off the edge of Hill. So this isn't going to be a linear walk, because in this section, this area of the village, the Dramway kind of divides up. So this that I'm walking to at the moment, this, if I continued the walk where we were earlier, I would have been coming up this way. So I would have been coming up from that direction where we started the walk today at Siston Common. I'll put the map in now so it all kind of makes sense. And as I say, around here it all kind of splits up. So this was the very end of our Dramway, because it served a number of collieries in this area, including the one we're going to see in a bit. I'm walking back this way though, because in front of me was the site of Coalpit Heath railway station, not on a Dramway, but on the main line between Paddington and South Wales. So it's like the diversion line. And it's the stop before, well, the present day Bristol Parkway station, which we were at the other day, weren't we, when we were doing Frenchay Village show. Station site's no longer there, but I think there is a compound there for Network Rail. So I'm going to see if I can go down it a bit first, because their compound is kind of on the edge of where the colliery site once was. Once I've done that, I'm going to walk on round to where there's like a junction of lanes, and again I put the map in so you can see what I'm talking about, and we'll have a look in that area as well. And hopefully if we find something, I'll tell you about the history of this colliery here, Ram Hill, on the edge of the village of Coalpit Heath. So I've just come to the point where the Dramway meets Ram Lane. So that Ram Lane is just in there. It kind of went on in that direction, and it's in that area there where the colliery was. We also have down here the limestone sets. You can see one just down there, just do a close-up of it. But just over the other side, we have a marker there, just up there saying Dramway footpath. As we cross over, being careful of the traffic, over the lane here, Ram Hill. Here we have Ram Hill Business Park. You can see that there. And I think we could have a look in here to see if there's anything in here. We also have got some gates here, nothing to do with our Dramway, but I think they might have marked the entrance to Coalpit Heath's railway station. Very nice they are indeed. Let's just check these out. They're painted yellow. I don't know if they were originally painted yellow, so they've got one there, one on the opposite side. There's a car by the side of it though. It's got some writing down here. T. James Vulcan Foundry, Cardiff 1902. That's very impressive. I'll do a close-up of that so you can see it. So this is the Network Rail access point to get on to the fast lines. Bristol Parkway's in that direction, of course, then on to the Severn Tunnel into South Wales. That direction takes you back to Swindon. Just see the flag there. And it was here once stood Coalpit Heath's railway station. There is something down this end though, and I think it may have been the station master's house, so we'll have a look at that first. So yep, that confirms it. Don't like showing private properties. See if I can get a shot from the distance though. So yeah, there's the gate to old station house, and just to the right of that is, looks like a broad gauge straining post there, hidden in the ivy. That's great to see. Nothing to do with our Dramway though. That's looking down what was Coalpit Heath Railway. There's nothing else down that way. I can't get through. There's another factory that's like at 90 degrees to the railway track, so we can't get through to our Ram Hill site. So we're going to continue now back onto Ram Hill Lane, or Ram Lane should I say, and see if we can get around the other side of it. And this though, which is a large piece of limestone, I have a feeling that's more connected to do with our Dramway than it is anything to do with the Great Western Railway station that was once here. And that is the old station house here at Coalpit Heath. It's good to see that that's still standing just a few metres away to the south of the railway tracks. So we have an intersection of footpaths and cycleways. To the right it takes us back down into the centre of the village. To the left, Yeat, 2.5 miles. Westerly, 1.5 miles. Our Dramway turns off left. This point, the track to Yeat going straight on. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. This is the entrance to the Ram Hill Colliery site. It's an interpretive board here with a number of photographs on it. I'll just read quickly what it says, not all of it, but it says that coal has been mined in Coalpit Heath since the 14th century. The Coalpit Heath Colliery Company mined this site between 1825, so that's 5 years after the Dramway arrived here, and 1865. The oval shaft now filled in was 170 metres deep. The Dramway was built to move the coal in trucks pulled by horses to the River Avon near Keynsham, which we saw, of course, in video number 1 here on the Dramway series. We have a lovely seat here with a horse pulling a tram along the Dramway, and carved underneath it you can see it says Ram Hill Colliery, That's just fantastic. I don't think I could have got a better ending to the Dramway here if I tried. In fact, it looks like you've got not one set of rails there, but two. Don't know if I can get closer down to it to get a better shot. And of course, the reason why the Dramway, which is the terminus of our Dramway at this point, is at a lower level to this wall here, is because the trucks above, which would have pulled the coal out of the ground from the shaft, would have tipped them into the drams below, and then they would have made their way slowly down by the force of gravity all the way down to the River Avon, which we saw in episode 1. The site at Brandy Bottom we saw the other side of the green fence was spectacular, but this, being able to walk around the site at the end of the video, is just extraordinary, isn't it? Such well preserved remains. So we have one set of rails here, another one to the right here. I'm just walking in between the first set of rails, which goes up underneath that arch there, and here you can see part of the tube which was connected it to. These were replaced, in fact. You can see that there, because I say originally they weren't iron, they were originally held together by oak pins, so that was obviously replaced, because this carried on till the 1930s, I do believe. Again, you can see where the other ones were here. So I'm now looking back along the site here. That's the tracks I just walked along there through the middle, and let's say there's another set running parallel just off to that side. Don't know how far we can follow the Dramway at this point, but I'll see how we go. Sadly, at the end of the site here, it looks like the land was sold off, and well, basically we're looking at the back of someone's garden, which kind of impinges on the former Dramway route here. But you have this magnificent wall here built to protect what is in a bit of a cutting here, and as I say, it's a downhill gradient all the way to the River Avon, some just over 7 miles away to the south. Now we're looking back across to our site again. Hill Colliery. Probably going to be looking burnt out at the moment, but I'm actually pointing the camera directly down towards the railway tracks there, and just the other side of that fence is where the station site at Coalpit Heath once was. So the Hill Colliery was just above it in terms of height. And that's looking back into the Hill Colliery site once more, and the railway tracks, or Dramway tracks shall I say, they're kind of in there down in the dip on a lower level. And the buildings behind there have railway bricks. I think they probably would have been for the people that worked on the tracks here at Coalpit Heath, but not related to the Dramway. Actually looking down on the shaft that led to the galleries of the coal mine below, obviously protected by metal grille above it. You can see it goes down probably 10 metres or so, and then there's a passageway off to the left as it goes lower down. See if I can get an angle on that. It's the bottom of the vertical shaft, and then it's difficult to get a shot of it because of the grille, but it's kind of off to the left there where it goes dark, and that is a shaft going horizontally along into the mine. Now this circular building here, well, it's not a building, it's the outside of it, but it was thought to originally to have had a conical roof to it, and it was known as a horse gin. And yes, you probably worked it all out. The horses, probably 2 of them, would have worked around in a circle, moving a wheel, and that wheel, attached to ropes, would have taken the men down the shaft to work in the pits here. And I think there were 3 seams, and it will also then, once the coal had been worked out of the seam, it would have brought the coal up to the surface, and again over there where that black rail is, put into the trams and along into the tramway below. Well, what an ending to our Dramway journey, starting off with that bridge at Willsbridge back in episode 1 and walking way down to Londonderry Wharf and following the edge of the River Avon and looking at how it moved to both Bath and Bristol. And in episode 2 we were looking at other sections of it, including that bridge on Siston Common. And episode 3, well, yes, here we go, say no more, not 1 but 2 colliery remains. Really pleased with that. Brandy bottom, lots to see there, including the magnificent Cornish engine house and this, the gin house, and the 2 parallel tracks of the Dramway itself, completely intact. I wasn't expecting that. It's brilliant. I've really enjoyed all 3 parts, or making all these 3 parts of the Dramway over the previous few months. And that's the end of this one in our Lost Railway Walk series, but it's not the end of our Lost Railway Walk series here on West Country Wanderings. Of course, there'll be another video looking at another railway line here in the West Country in the future. Until then, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, and I hope to see you on the channel again very soon. All the best for now. Cheers. Goodbye.